In order to protect myself and protect my own life, I became a member of a gang.
Wow.
So I became a member of a gang on campus too, because it's either you join or you get killed.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Next Level Finance Season 2, Episode 2. I've got that right this time. We've got the legendary Dr. Daniel Moses here. He's a multi-award-winning entrepreneur, and there's not much he doesn't know, as I found out from our conversation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Get ready for all the fun after this. I say welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of the Next Level Finance podcast. And I always check if I get that right with my team. As I said in the intro, we've got Dr. Daniel Moses, who's got huge wealth of knowledge, and he's going to be going through his entrepreneur journey. And as we said, we're really excited. Are you ready for it?
I'm absolutely excited. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's quite a long drive, but...
Worth it. Hopefully you enjoyed the food. As you know, the hospitality here, Sir Tax is always important.
It's amazing.
And the most important thing is, do you know what? We're very privileged and humbled to have people like yourself who are going to help share with the audience their amazing journey and hopefully inspire the next generation or the current generation to take action.
Absolutely.
And I think you will do. Get ready for all the value. I want to start doing a bit of intro, and I'll probably always, some of the guests, I never always do them justice, but I try my best. Right, you've been involved in so many different aspects of business, predominantly in property world. You've gone from property management to property training to actually property investment and sourcing and a whole lot more. And I didn't even mention award-winning author.
Absolutely.
On the Forbes Business Council you were mentioning for the UK. I think the list is quite long. You'll get the gist. He's got a lot of insight, and we're going to be asking him some big questions and hope the audience get the value. And I'm sure you're going to share it.
Definitely.
So just to start off, and I always start this way, is to understand a bit of your personal challenges. For me, this is such an important bit because people want to know, what is Dr. Daniel Moses? How has he got to where he's got to? Because people always think it's not possible, but when I meet entrepreneurs, especially on the Next Level Finance podcast, we're all about unlocking financial freedom. And that comes from people's knowledge, experience, and their journey. So the question I wanted to ask yourself is, you know, you've come from abroad, so you've got a different perspective. You came from Nigeria, age 24, to the UK. So you've been about 20 years. Hopefully I'm not giving too many people his age, right? Doesn't look that old anyway. How did you make that transition? Because I'm sure there's aspiring entrepreneurs who come to different things, they're doing transitions, but this is quite unique from country to country. How did you make the difference?
Well, how I made the transition wasn't just something that I landed on a platter of gold. It was due to, you know, economical challenges, personal challenges, risk to life, and you name it, which was what kind of prompted my leaving Nigeria in those early age. I went to University of Benin, Nigeria.
Where is that?
It's in Nigeria.
Is that one of the major cities?
Well, Nigeria has over 36 states.
Wow.
With almost 300 million people. Wow. So quite a big country.
Big country.
Nigeria is one of the biggest nation with the biggest, black, citizens across the globe. So I always call it Nigeria. I always say Nigeria is the beginning of black civilization. And people say, try to be humble about it. I say, well, let's be honest, Nigeria is a big, big country. So there is no other country that's got that population in the world. So we got the market for everything. We got the good, we got the bad, we got the ugly, we got corruption. We also got successes. We got great entrepreneurs in Nigeria. But it's sometimes when you mention the word you're Nigerian, obviously we've been stigmatized over time, to be, we're corrupt, Nigerians this. Well, let's be honest, what country in the world isn't corrupt? There is corruption everywhere, but it's all about the differentiation of who you become, is what matters. So for me, I was in that journey of my life. I went to University of Benin, as I mentioned, and I studied sociology and anthropology. But towards the last phase of my university days, somehow, because my entrepreneurial journey really started from when I was very young, You know, when I was in university, I was the guy in campus that would sell anything apart from illicit items. So I sell clothes, sell cars, sell everything possible.
Just on that point, just unpack it for the audience,
Yeah.
right? Where did you get the inspiration mindset to do that? Is that from your parents, your environment,
Family.
family?
Yes. So
Was your dad an entrepreneur?
no, my dad wasn't an entrepreneur,
Or your
but
mum?
I had elder ones,
Got it.
you know, that kind of left the country quite early in life. So, you know, I had connections with Japan.
Wow.
You know, I had connection with China. So a few of my family relatives at that time did leave Nigeria to live in China.
Wow.
Then, you know, this is way back in the 90s, in the 80s,
That
even
makes
in the
sense
70s.
now, when you're saying
So
that,
those
'cause-
guys went, you know, and they brought things back, you know, to sell. So at the age of 16, I started selling things,
Yeah.
you know, and when I go into university, I became that guy. In Nigeria, there's a local name, we call it cargo man. You know, cargo man means you are the guy that sells anything. So the guy that sells anything is called cargo man, and I was nicknamed that guy.
Right.
You know, so towards the end of my university age, because I was always selling things, I was in school, I was living well, I was having cars, driving different cars and stuff like that. That then started to pose a risk towards my life because, you know, because I was quite well to do in terms of I had money, I sell things and stuff like that, but I became a subject of oppression. So by gangs.
Got it. Wow.
You know, I became a subject for oppression by gangs, and that I had to battle that pressure. And I became, in order to protect myself and protect my own life, I became a member of a gang.
Wow.
You know, so I became a member of a gang on campus too, because it's either you join or you get killed.
Wow.
Because I was being oppressed, you know, at the same time, where, for example, when people bought stuff from me and they didn't want to pay back,
Yes.
you know, I would be beaten, you know, and I couldn't go back to collect that money. And at some point in my life as well, you know, I had a girlfriend, I was quite a ladies' man, you know, I had a favorite one as well. You know, so and you will be oppressed to leave the girl for the gang members. So for those probably who understand the Nigerian story will probably understand what I'm talking about.
Just to pause there, because you've said a lot of bad
Yes.
things. And no, but it's really valuable because people realize they only see the sunny side.
Yeah.
They don't see what takes and what you have to challenges.
Yeah.
And every culture and environment has a different challenge.
Yeah.
And anyone who's probably been in different environments realized it's very different to the UK, and the mindset to survive is very different.
Yeah.
And I think you've articulated it really well.
Absolutely.
That you were entrepreneur, and just by being an entrepreneur and someone trying to solve problems, other people try to use that and take advantage, and you try to defend it and it was either become one of them or not.
Yeah.
But I guess the challenge was obviously there's a point where you have to make a decision, right?
Yep.
And I think you probably you're here, and I assume you made the decision, this isn't the right way.
Absolutely. So yes, you're very right. So and this was when my life became. So I thought, okay, by protecting myself, protecting my business, you know, and I had to become one of them, but not knowing when you become one of them, at that time, you're even more exposed to bigger risk.
Yes.
You know, you're even more exposed to not just one gang now, you're exposed to multiple gangs.
Wow.
You're on campus. And that was exactly what happened at that time. I'm talking about over 20 years now. So that's what happened. And I became one of the members. And I saw the whole thing was quite tough. So I started looking for a way to get out of the country. Otherwise, if this continue, I'll be killed.
Yeah.
I'll be a dead man.
Just to refer to context for the audience, he's talking about when he's in his early 20s, teens, as a teenager, becoming a young man. He's at university trying to get education and finance it, and he's unfortunately had some bad experiences.
Yes, absolutely.
But that's shaped you as a mindset, and it puts great context on what the stuff we're going to do.
It shaped me because I wrote a book called The Test.
Wow.
You know, and which became an Amazon bestseller within the first 30 days, if I'm right. We sold over 2,000 copies.
Wow.
And I shared that story of the entrepreneur. The story of the entrepreneur that most people never like to share. The story of the entrepreneur that people never like to talk about. Because for me, I've come to realize, looking back at 20 years of my entrepreneurial journey, I've come to the basics to remember that It is the challenge, your life experience that forms the biggest and the greatest part of you. People ask me today and say, "Oh, Dr. Daniel, how come you're very influential now? You're very this, you're very that now." And I look at the person I have become, because I could have become one of the most, I could have been killed. I could have been influenced in the wrong way and stay there and become a real proper gangster.
Yeah.
Or I could have become something that I would probably never, or my parents would have never be proud of. And part of the reason what gave me audacity to speak about it, to give me the audacity to inspire people that regardless of whatever you've been through in life, you can become a different person.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That's huge value to the audience, because people, you can make changes, and sometimes whether you believe in whatever you believe in, whether it's religion or these, you get people have different inspirations, and I think that's one of the inspirations that change. And also going through that, I know from talking to you, and we've had a few hours of Bruce sitting down having a chat, and always humbled when people give me their views of their life. You've given insight how you've done that transition. So you've come here, you've left that life, now you're in the UK, right? Clean slate, got away from the crazy world. You've also got experience of entrepreneurship, which is valuable and transferable. You're now in the UK. How did you make that difference from there to here, right? New environment, you're nobody here now, pretty much, if that's fair to say. How did you make an impact? And what did you do? What was your first steps?
It's quite interesting, because it's not really about the first steps. It's all about what the journey makes of you. When you've been beaten in a very harsh condition of life, no matter where you find yourself, those harsh conditions, those hard conditions, is harsh and it's hard.
Yes.
All right. And there is basically what is in front of you. You don't even know where you're going. So all of a sudden, when you come to a different climate like England, where everything is very cordial, there is dignity, there is security, there is safety. For me, it was like, okay, I don't see success today, but I think I can become successful in this institution. I can become successful in the system. I can become the greatest version of myself. So, and part of the reason when I wrote the test, I spoke about challenges a lot, because that was one part of challenge of my life in my early 20s, probably in my 19s, right? In my early part of my life. But it was the fact that I've come into this country, and first, no brother, no sister, no auntie, no uncle, no relative. I only knew two people. I knew one person in London and knew one person in Luton. Those are the two people I knew. And having to sleep on the floor, having to basically just survive for a couple of months, all right, it was better than being killed.
Wow.
It was better than bringing tears and sorrow to my family.
So, sorry to interrupt on that, is the reason why I asked the initial steps, because it sort of explains to people what you had to do, what makes the man, right, in this case, right? Or makes you the person, because when you've got that foundation, the context, you've given amazing context, and it seems that harsh reality is toughened you, understood the realities of the world, to what you needed to do, and that steps that you've sort of explained. You went there. What did you do after to get your first break, or first ways to earn money and get off the floor, basically, literally, if you don't mind me saying?
Well, I didn't, because I had to progress in doing linear jobs.
Right.
I had to do all types of linear jobs.
Give an example to the audience what you're kind
things
of...
like cleaning. Because in England you have to have a legal status. You have to have in Africa community in the UK we call it papers.
Right.
All right, you have to have resident permit.
Yes.
Or you have to have a British passport. My son will never understand what it means not to have a British passport.
Got it.
You're a citizen of the free world. But when you come in here as a Nigerian, we have a Nigerian passport with a visa that allows you to basically do nothing but just to come in and come out.
Yeah.
life is tough. You can't on a visa on a visa that I come in at that time. You can't even open a bank account.
Wow.
And that's where I've come from. So getting a proper job wasn't easy. So the only kind of jobs I could get were people basically cleaning people's toilets.
Wow.
Staying in the nightclubs.
Yeah.
All right, where people basically in Africa we call this thing there's a job called beke. Okay, it's called beke.
Okay.
All right, and that job was basically when people are in the nightclub, when they come downstairs to use the toilet,
Yeah.
there will be a guy with lollipops and perfumes inside the toilet.
Yeah.
So I used to do that job,
Wow.
and it wasn't a good job to do. Let's be very honest. If I was gonna describe it,
Yeah.
maybe this was it's probably would be too heavy for the ears of the audience.
Yeah, I just to interrupt on that. I to unpack that, but it was a legitimate job, right? And I think people don't realise how important that is. Listen, I'm from humble beginnings as well. My parents, when they've come, I came here. My dad had to do everything. He couldn't read and write, so I understand totally. And I think you have to understand or appreciate that. And having first-hand experience, right, is going to explain to us as we're going through this journey what made you who you've done.
Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing such insight. And I can feel the passion there, because I had this when I used to speak to my dad all those years ago, and he couldn't read or write. He did everything when he came here because it was just him and some family members, right? Parents, none of that was here.
Yep.
So and it was hard those days as well, and it's never easy.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that I've seen in your story is obviously you've gone through this struggle, but you haven't let it limit your beliefs. And I see this happen with so many people. They let this affect them, their journey. They're like, why me? Like the world is against me. It's like that big weight, right? It's not saying don't forget that, because that's so important, but not to let that hold yourself back. And you haven't let that. How have you not let it limit your beliefs? That's what I think the audience would love to know.
When this is the journey of the entrepreneur, isn't it? The journey of the entrepreneur. I think when people think about entrepreneurship, I'm not very fortunate to coach a lot of people, mentor a lot of people. When people think about entrepreneurship, people think about success, right? But there is a lot behind it.
Yeah.
So for me, all these different challenges, these are just what I'm actually mentioning are just the basic of it. If you read my book, The Test, you find a lot of challenges there that actually transition my mindset to actually go for gold, to become the greatest version of myself. To never quit. Obviously, my belief has been very fueled by God.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that whatever I've been through in life, it was taking my steps to where I am now as a leading entrepreneur especially within the ethnic minority. So for me, I think resilience, never quitting, never seeing myself to be a failure, pushing through the needle, taking a yes inside my brain when somebody actually said no to me. Say, actually, no, you meant yes. When somebody said to me, oh, it's not going to happen, actually, that's going to happen. So just rewiring my own brain consistently whilst going through this journey has been what has kept me going.
Do you know that? Thank you for sharing that, because I think that will inspire so many people. I guess you went from obviously doing menial jobs, and you talked quite eloquently about that. What I want to know is, when did you feel, I'm going to revisit the entrepreneur world from obviously doing tasks to survive, really? Yeah, because let's be honest, it's about survival. Yeah, it wasn't about the nice to haves and I'm going to get Sky TV or something. No disrespect. Yeah, it was like, I need to have food and get a place to even live. Right now I'm on someone's floor, and I'm thankful to even be on the floor. Yeah, right. How did you do that transition?
Looking back 20 years plus now, I still can explain it.
Wow.
The reason why I can explain it, because I now understand there was a God moving me forward, because I was strengthless. He gave me strength. And the reason, when I had those strengths, I was able to do those jobs. When I had those strengths, I was able to go to Peckham, help people load the food stuff they were buying into their cars. You know, I was basically picking up used televisions in the streets of London and shipping them back to Nigeria. I was basically picking up fridges that we threw away, all right, and shipping them back to Nigeria to sell.
Do you know why I'm smiling? Do you know why I'm smiling? Because you just reminded me of a thing I've only thought about for about 30 plus years, 34, almost 35 years. I used to go with my dad to the car boot sales, and we did exactly, and I didn't even know, because remember, my dad unfortunately was age 11. I used to go around and he used to pick the TVs, and I'm like, everyone else is just looking at us, right? And he's going around and
picking them,
and then buying them and then selling them just for and doing this and working round the clock in a factory.
Yeah.
And I, in my head, and that was every Saturday morning that we used to know about car boot sales.
Yeah.
So when you said that, you just brought a memory back that I haven't probably thought about for 35, 36. I'm going to have to talk to my children about this when I get home. Thank you. So you found opportunities.
Yeah, I found
just
opportunities.
To make the numbers. When did you feel you made real progress, in the sense, when I say progress, that you could stand on your own feet, i.e. got your own place, or you know, you weren't reliant on others? When did that happen?
Well, it happened around, I think I started making those progress around about 2005.
Wow.
This was when I had met my girlfriend, then now my wife.
Okay.
We've been married for 18 years.
Amazing.
When I started having that was when I met her. She, before that time, you know, obviously I started, you know, engaging with a lot of African communities. So some of my friends, I started meeting people, go to church, go to nightclubs, you know, starting to, oh, there were more black people like myself. And then
I love the contrast, church nightclub. So I was going to the modern day UK life, right? Okay, go on.
Know, and eventually started meeting people, so met a couple of friends, and then started having friends. And at some point we would rent. So there was about 4 of us. We rent one room together and sleep on that room. So some will sleep on the bed, 2 will sleep on the floor, 4 of us. Then from that, I moved out. Another of my friends, we rented the house together. From there, I met my wife. When I met my wife, I started living with my wife. And at that time, obviously, as I said, I was shipping things back to Nigeria to sell, and then also buying clothes as well to ship them over to Nigeria. And then I met my wife. And when I met my wife, moved in with her, and started, as soon as we moved in with her, I started going back to Nigeria as well, ship those things, sell it, come back. And this was when things started to open up a little bit. And we, within a couple of months of getting married, we managed to
just unpack the timescale. So you've come about 2004, 20 odd years ago, right? You've spent about a year trying to figure out things.
Yeah, over a year.
And then you obviously
met my wife.
You got married within
6 months.
6 months. So 18 months now. We're looking about 2006, around about then, right? I'm thinking about the economy as well at this time and that. And you're still doing a bit of business.
Yep.
This is making ends meet. This business.
Just living.
Just living.
Just living.
And then
I was saving. I started making good money. I started making some good savings.
Yeah. And then I guess, what did you do after that? You said you pushed harder by trying to get.
Yeah, we pushed harder, and then towards around the end of 2006, managed to save a lot of money. My wife was already working. She sold her flat.
Yeah.
So when my wife sold her flat, she had a lot of money. So, and I obviously added the little I had saved as well. We managed to move into a bigger house.
Where was this in the country?
Bromley.
Bromley, okay.
Yeah, so she was living in Brockley, and my wife was living in Brockley, and then we moved from there to Bromley. So, and when we moved to Bromley, we started living there in a bigger house, which was a 3-bed detached, 3-bed semi-detached property.
Wow, amazing.
Which we bought at that time for 250,000.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of the money came from the deposit. The majority of the money came from the house that she had owned and that she sold, and we started living there together. And not too long after that, she fell pregnant, and we had our first child about 2 years later, around about 2008.
I want to stop at that, because in my head, 2008 is a big year.
It was.
because that's when the financial crisis
Crisis,
started
yes.
happening. So you're having a family, you're entrepreneur, and we've got this. Then they say once in a lifetime, but it was, it's never once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
But it was a big thing at that time. Did that impact you on that journey at that time?
Well,
Affect your business?
well, at that time, I'll be very frank and open and honest about it. I knew there was a recession, but for someone who was buying used, because it became a big business for me now.
Yeah.
For someone who was picking up things in the streets of London and shipping it back to Nigeria, it became a big business for me. So as long as I shipped them to Nigeria and they sold and I made my money and brought my money back to London, and buy cars, break them into spare parts,
Wow.
ship them over to Africa, it made some money for me. In terms of the economical challenges, it didn't actually, because of my business model, it didn't really have that kind of impact because my income was not, it became non-UK based
Got
income.
it. So, and also because you had a niche that
Yeah.
you were doing, you had source and
Yeah.
the clientele,
Yeah.
you had built that infrastructure, you were protected. Okay, I want to move on because there's so much value there. When did you move from that business, or if you did, to what you're more thinking of what you're doing now, right? How long did that transition take? Because you mentioned to me that you did Ubers and everything,
my
so
days.
I'm
It's
just
so
like,
much.
it's so much. So when you said it was 2018,
Yeah,
so
I'm-
now we're looking like 10 year. So 10 years. So 10 years you carried on doing this and
No,
stuff on the side, or
I actually went to really get a great context of my entire journey of my transitioning. That's why I wrote the test called the transitioning,
Wow.
of the ordinary to the extraordinary, because I have transformed from an ordinary guy to an extraordinary individual. I say this with all humbleness.
Yeah.
I've been beaten. I have tears. I've sorrowed. I've cried. I have at attempts. I almost took my life. I had attempts. I went through. I was on the strongest antidepressant tablets.
Was this when you were very young?
No, this is me in my entrepreneurial journey.
Wow. Okay.
So,
okay. Wow.
and I'm just going to summarize this quickly so we can move on.
Please.
So I went through all these different things, and I share great details of this in my book, The Test. Now, cut long story short, around about 2013, I basically said to myself, where am I going to? What's happening? There's too many things just up and down my life. I'm going to just go back to Africa and I'm going to set up a business in oil and gas, because now people are telling me, okay, you might could earn some money over there. So I went into Nigeria and I started doing oil and gas logistics. So logistics meaning I was transporting petroleum products from the depots where it's been stored to distribute them at the petrol stations. I was doing that business
All within Nigeria.
all within Nigeria. So I did that for about 3 years, and on the third year, I had another massive challenge. I lost over £150,000. Two of my trailers loaded with petroleum products.
Wow.
Basically exploded.
Wow.
All right. So this is what actually led to my success.
So how did they explode? Just
So they were traveling in Nigeria together. This is over 8 years ago now, and they had somehow run at the back of each other and fell into the ditch. My insurance had expired. My manager at that time wasn't managing the business correctly. I was in and out of the country. I was always in and out.
Yeah.
My insurance had expired a couple of weeks before this incident had happened. Obviously, there was a few foul plays here and there, but the product exploded. The truck fell into the valley, exploded, burned into flames. And not only did it burn into flames, I had obviously raised money at that time to support the business. I lost all that money. It's not just the loss of the money, it's not loss of the business. It's also the ripple effect. I had a life in the UK, I have 2 children in the UK, I have mortgages to pay, we have car finance to pay. I had also got investors I need to pay in Nigeria. So I was just in this sinking ship.
Right.
in 2015. This happened late 2015.
Did the people, just asking the people on the trucks, they were okay? They
Yeah,
survived?
nobody died. Absolutely. Nobody died. Nobody died at all. It was just a loss.
Yeah.
But you can imagine what is in my mindset at this time.
The world's finished.
You know, my word at this moment is, okay, this has been the massive roller coaster of my life. What next? Where do I begin? I'm asking myself several questions, and all these questions led me into depression, led me into thinking about killing myself, led me into things around, you just name it. And this was when I became an Uber driver, because I quitted the entrepreneurial life.
It got too much.
It got too much, and I said, no, it wasn't for me anymore. Even my wife was like, what is it now? I said, well, nothing else other than finding a job. And there's nothing wrong about being an Uber driver. But when you've built a business and it fits you for a while, and you have to be in the car for 18 hours driving people from A to Z, it's not a really great place to be.
But I think what I said earlier, listen, I've got family members who, I've been in the taxi world and Uber, which is equivalent. It's that or crime, right? So you have to pay for the bills.
Yeah.
You've got to make something, and you've got to pay for stuff, right? You've got
It piles up.
responsibilities.
It just builds up. If you don't pay it, it just piles up. Nobody's going to come and take it away. The letter's not going to stop coming through the door.
And especially the world we live in, everything is so electronic and everything.
Yeah.
So this was your way to buy some time, get out, get your mind back, because you weren't in a healthy place.
Yeah, I wasn't in a healthy place at all.
Did that help?
Well, it helped because, to be honest, the first 6 to 8 months, just basically felt like, okay, this is it. And it felt like you come, you work, you sleep, you wake up. There is nothing really going through your brains, even though I had debts to pay, but I'm not having to think to create. I'm only doing what I'm given.
Yes.
And for that, as an entrepreneur, it is draining. As an entrepreneur, your brain is always working. What is the next thing to do? Entrepreneurship was never about money. Entrepreneurship was always about creativity. Entrepreneurs get paid through being creative.
Yes.
And it's the creativity that allows, you to create a service, a product, you name it. So being in that space as an Uber driver, where my brain wasn't functioning on creativity, but rather functioning as a just given, in the first 8 months, it was okay. But when entrepreneurship is inside of you, it never dies.
Yes.
So this is where, towards the end of 2016, I started questioning what next. Is this how I'm going to live now?
I want to ask you some questions on that, because I think this is so important for people. People just see the nice side, the cars, the houses, and all the rest of it, and all the upside. They don't see the downside. It sounds like this humbled you again.
Oh my goodness.
Because for me, there's nothing wrong with any paid employment that you do.
Absolutely.
Because you are working hard. It doesn't matter, because everybody somewhere down the line, right, depending on their experiences, very few people are handed the stuff. Right?
Yeah.
They don't get, here's the keys. Some people do, and all respect to them, if they've been lucky.
Yeah.
But that's not everyone's cards are not dealt that way. And it sounds like for me that you've had to deal with that, give yourself some thinking time, which it sounds like you did with that. And now you've gone from running 100 miles per hour on entrepreneur world, probably still not happy what you're doing, because you're all over the place. You've got a young family or growing family, you've got commitments. You now had to take a step back because everything fell through. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
You gave yourself, did that for a couple of years. You said you just literally for 6 to 8 months, you were just doing the 18 hours and just, that was your way of venting. And now you got to 2018, I think it was, you were saying, the 2 years you've done this. What made you decide to, and for me a massive thing is, to get into property? Because that was your starting point, wasn't it? First you started property management.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, sorry to interrupt the podcast. Hope you're getting a huge amount of value from this. Just going to be quick, 2 seconds. First of all, to let you know, in the comments below, we have got links to free business guides that can help you on your entrepreneur journey. They include exclusive footage from Sky TV episodes that I've done and a whole load of other content in there. Whether you're a growing business, property investor, property developer, or if you want to love the fun of SaaS pensions. Please do look at those. And if you still want more help, get in touch. The contact details are below. I hope you enjoy the podcast.
So whilst that was all happening, me questioning myself, what else do I need to do? This is where like I said, I'm a man of faith and God. I wrote in my first and second book how I had divine clarity.
Wow.
So I had a divine clarity where I actually saw what I'm doing today, face to face. So I had a dream where I was in that dream. I was doing every single thing I'm doing today. And
Was this during the day or when you were sleeping and you had a vision?
I actually I was driving my Uber taxi car.
Yeah.
And I almost crashed my car because I fell asleep on the wheel. I fell asleep driving.
Because so many hours you worked.
Yeah, I was driving 18 hours. Uber didn't have limits at that time.
Right.
You know, Uber was a free for all. You can drive however long you like. Uber didn't, just drive however you like. And because the money was good, as an Uber driver, that was the best money I could make at that time. I was making good money, really, really good money. Doing 18 hours a day, you're talking about at least good
7
money.
days a week?
I was doing 6 days-ish. So I would finish on a Sunday. And obviously Sunday would be the day I'd take off and spend with the family. Though I would probably still go out in the evening just to kind of take in the, you know, taking some money as well in the Sunday.
Wow.
But Sunday was a little bit of the more cool-off day. But the other day was in and out, just driving for that.
In my head, I'm just working your age right now. So you're in your mid-late 30s now.
Yeah, I'm in my around about early 30s. In my 34, 30...
Yeah, a bit more.
A bit more, 30, yeah.
Mid-late 30s.
About mid-30, yeah.
So this is a big, because you're probably looking at everybody else.
Yeah.
And human nature is always to compare, especially in communities. Yeah. And you're probably thinking, and it's my wife and everything else comes, all these thoughts come into your head.
Even, you're right. Because
even though nothing people have said,
yeah,
or to close people never say these things.
I mean,
but it's just you got that pride.
Even saying that now, there were times people started to ask my wife, which one is it? And sometimes even some friends and relatives keep asking me, when is his problems going to finish? It seems like from fry pan to fire, from fire to fry pan. It's like, at some point I actually started to feel a cost as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is going on? Is there God, or isn't God? What is it?
You're questioning yourself.
I'm questioning myself on so many things. Like, it's almost like, have you ever heard about everything that he touches? People say everything he touches gets spoilt, or some people say everything I touch turns to gold. At that point in my life, that's what I'm asking myself. Is it that everything I'm touching spoils?
This answers that big question of limiting belief.
Yes.
Because your environment, normally it's not the people that you're not connected to, it's the people that you are. They're the ones that, without knowing sometimes, some intentionally, I'm not disputing that, but a lot of times unintentionally, they are putting you down and making you feel that way. And that's one of the biggest fights entrepreneurs have, because by definition, being an entrepreneur, you're doing something different. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not a guaranteed result.
No. Entrepreneur is like, some people have a perspective of entrepreneurship. It's almost like entrepreneurship is almost like being given an open check or being given a closed check. The truth is, there is more people with a closed check than an open check. Yeah. A closed check meaning that you may never be able to cash that money.
Yeah.
They're fortunate entrepreneurs as well. Maybe those that had it in their family and it got given to them and they had to take it to the next level and grow it.
Yeah.
But I'm coming from the point where, as an entrepreneur, the check was closed.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether I was going to ever cash it.
Yeah.
I was never sure of a day like this many things that I enjoy today. Sometimes the only thing that keeps me going is I'm like, oh my days. So it was almost like God was himself building my resilience level. And part of the reason why my approach to life today, my approach to how I run business and how I do things, it's very different. Because it was challenges that made me who I've become.
Yes.
So I'm never afraid of anything.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just challenges, that made me who I've become.
I think that resilience, and do you know what? If anyone's not inspired so far, rewind, right? Because I think there'd be a lot of people inspired, because it's that willingness to just keep on going in that fight of your life, right?
Yeah, it's keep on going, and as well as a mentor now, as a coach, I speak to a lot of people every day. I've had the opportunity, and I say this with all humbleness again, I've had the opportunity of mentoring at least 1,000 people in the last 4 years. I currently run one of the most successful educational company in the UK in terms of property education and wealth creation. And a couple of of our students have gone into holding multi-million pound property portfolio.
Fantastic.
And one of the things when I spoke to these people and when I speak to them is that some of them will say, "Oh, you don't know my story. You don't know what I've been through." And I smile. And part of the reason why I became a champion to sharing most of the challenges I've been through, because your challenges you've been through shouldn't be the reason why you can't go and be the greatest version of yourself.
Do you know what?
We all have a story. We all have where we've been burned. We all have where we wanted to give up. But should you make that the reason why you can't go and become the greatest version of yourself?
I totally agree. I think that inspiration and having that story and showing what's possible.
Yeah.
And that's why we do the Next Level Finance podcast, to have
Absolutely.
great people like yourself give that. I want to talk about, because one of the things you said, obviously that transition. Now you've done the Uber for 2 years, we got to 2018, right? You've had this amazing journey, a roller coaster.
Yeah, just quickly stop you there because I didn't finish the story.
Yeah, go.
So I had the divine encounter of what I'm doing.
Please,
And
elaborate.
when I did that, and that was when I basically had the dream I was about to crash.
Yes.
And I woke up and I basically was playing on my Facebook. That was the first time I saw some property training somewhere, £70.
Right.
I paid £70 to go to that training event.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I was the only person of color in the room.
Wow.
I felt completely intimidated. I'm like, nah, this is not for me. There's too many white people here. There's too many white people.
In the nicest possible way, he's just expressing, I don't want to upset anybody, and he's not upset. He's just saying, because
I'm like, no, there's too many white people here. Come on now, I'm gone. Something inside of me said,
my days.
I love to say how it is, right? No filters.
Listen, this is Next Level Finance podcast. This is the real stuff. I know how he feels. That has happened to me on more than one occasion. And it is, human nature. This isn't being discriminated. It's just, you're just like, whoa, I'm in an environment where if I'm looking just primitively, it's
and
different.
Guess what? Everybody was suited as well. Everybody was suited.
And how did you turn up?
And part of the reason why I wear a lot of suits as well these days, I'm like, everybody's suited, everybody looking nice. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, you know what? Okay. I was about to go, but something inside of me says,
Stay.
No, stay. But everything, BRRR, purchase list option, split titles, everything felt like a scam.
You thought it was for those people, not you.
No, I'm in the wrong room. Anyway, cut long story short, I left. I went to my very close friend in church. Like, I think I want to get into property. And the first advice he gave me is like, he spoke in the Nigerian dialect and said to me, it's like, bro, pack well. It means like, keep your calm. Do you get it? It's like, keep your calm. You barely survived your situation in Africa. You're driving Uber. Now you're already talking about another business. It's barely less than 2 years that you've had all this crisis. Bro, no, don't do it. It's a scam. It's not going to work. They're going to take your money. One of my friends paid for a coaching business, paid for a coach and mentor. They scammed him. Something inside of me was like, don't listen to him.
Yeah, it's that drive.
and I didn't listen. And that was where I started my property entrepreneurial journey. I went from that to paying every single coach I could find in property, in business, and to be honest, I went on that journey of entrepreneur of self development. I went for the first mentor, and then the second one, helped me out with rent to rent. By the year 2018, I had done at least 20 property transactions. I had done 20 property transactions in rent to rents.
Yeah.
So I kept 8 of them. I sold 12
Yeah.
of the rent to rent deals.
So to break that up for the entrepreneurs, so you've invested in knowledge and training.
Yes.
I mean, you've got into rent to rent because that's probably the lowest
Barrier to
entry, but it also gives you huge knowledge.
Yes.
You've done rent to rent. So you've also sourced rent to rent
Yes.
to help finance the cash flow.
Yes.
And you've done some to get you recurring income.
Yes.
Love it. Just to break it down, financials, right?
Yes,
Please go.
absolutely. So at that time, I had done about 8 rent-to-rent deals. I kept those ones, and every other deals that kept coming through, I started selling them. Actually, I sold my first 2 deals. So, just for the audience, I actually sold the first 2 deals that came through, and those 2 deals I made about just under £4,000, which allowed me to pay for my first deal. So that was first month's rent,
Yeah.
deposit, and then I had the opportunity of, at that time, my credit card had gone up a little bit, so I leveraged on, I think, a couple of hundred, can't remember now. And then if I can remember, maybe I took some money from my wife. I can't really remember now.
Yeah.
So, and I got my first deal.
Yeah.
And when I remember getting the first rent-to-rent deal, finally picking the keys and going to sign the contract and going to the property, opening the door. And once I opened the door, I went home. I was so happy. I was telling my wife, "Oh, we just secured our first rent deal. This property is going to make me about £700 a month." And I remember my wife looked at me and was like, "But we don't know how we're going to pay the mortgage." "Do you realize you've just taken another mortgage on?" And I started to think, the reason why everything will go wrong. Within 2 weeks, I was actually thinking of giving the keys back.
You're scared.
And the third week was when I managed to secure 2 tenants on the same week, I think, if I can remember now. Secure 2 tenants. I was like, "Oh, it works."
So break this down. This is now 2018.
This is 2018. 2018, yeah. 2017, 2018.
You made net cash flow 700 on a rent-to-rent
Yeah, on
deal.
the rent-to-rent deal.
And you've made some money to give the deposit from
Yeah.
selling some deals.
Yeah.
Right? Fantastic. And now you're learning how all this is working. That net cash flow 700 that you made, how long did you have the agreement for just getting
It was a 2 years agreement.
2 years.
It was a 2 years tenancy agreement.
And it all run well, that one?
And it ran well. I was making around about £700. And very quickly, I'm like, "Oh my days, it works. Okay, so if this works,
Let's do more.
So tenants move in. So if you have 5 tenants in one property, they pay you rent. So I said, this can never go wrong. So at what point someone is not going to stay in that room?
Which location are we
London.
looking at? London, right, okay.
So I'm like, at what point someone is not going to come and stay in this room? And basically, and I just kind of worked it out in my head. I'm like, okay, so people are always going to be there. People are always going to be there. People are going to rent the room. Let's see what happens in a month. And I think it was about 6 weeks later, I managed to get the whole thing tenanted. And once that was up and running, I just basically moved in back to back, just storing the deal very, very quickly. I got to property number 8, and then that year, towards the end of 2018, I remember, I think it was between September and October, and I said, "You know what, I can stop driving Uber."
Right, so you're still doing Uber for cash flow
Yeah, I was still doing Uber.
And you're doing this and you're managing this, so literally, wow. So
Yeah.
you're full at it.
I'm full at it. I'm full at it.
How much is it now cash flowing? Is it cash flowing to a good
It
level?
was, towards the end of 2018, not only did I stop driving Uber because I had been able to replace my Uber income, I bought myself a Mercedes-Benz C-Class.
And were you doing this? We have tax here and finance. Were you doing it for a company or in your own name?
No, I was doing it a company. I was educated.
You were educated.
I was in.
So you're doing rent to rent through a limited company.
I was doing through a limited company.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, I did it through a limited company, and then I started painting the bigger picture. Now I want to go. Because I've always, like I said, I've always been very entrepreneurial. So I always saw the bigger picture.
Yeah,
I was always looking at the bigger picture. So now I stopped driving Uber full time. I bought myself a nice car, a car that was on my vision board. And then I started to tell my wife, I think next
So you
year,
mentioned something there. Just drop that one in, vision board.
vision board, vision board.
Vision board. Just for the entrepreneurs and everyone who's been inspired with the journey, you've got a vision board just to keep you in check. You put
Yeah, just
things
to put
on.
things I want in life.
Wow. And this is one of the
Yeah,
ticks.
and the car was one of the ticks that I'm going to buy that C-Class.
Got
So
it.
I managed to buy the C-Class, and I bought it, paid about, if I can remember, and I think I paid about £4,000 deposit, and the rest was on finance.
Right.
And interestingly, paid £4,000 deposit, and I took it on the business finance.
Right.
So meaning the business was paying the monthly cost of
Got it.
of using the car. You know, if I know what I actually know now, I would have even paid £4,000. I'd have actually paid £20 on it, and then the business will pay the rest because I understand leverage more now.
Well,
So I started telling my wife, okay, I think this is good. Let's see how we can get to property number 20, and let's see how we can start owning our properties.
got it. Love it. How's the transition?
So now I'm thinking towards, what am I going to do in 2019? What am I going to do? You know, rent to rent is great. So now I started networking in bigger rooms. And I remember when I was networking bigger rooms, and you tell people, oh, obviously in 2018 I was still maybe of a little bit of a newbie-ish. But when you say, oh, I do rent to rent, people get inspired about it, they like it. But the real big boys in property, when you say rent to rent, they don't really see you as a property investor. They see you as a property manager.
Yeah.
And for me, I wanted to do big things. Because, I mean, as of 2015, I did grow a business to over £150,000. So I wanted to
Fantastic.
leave that very quickly as well. So, and I started developing myself. Then I got myself I went to another boot camp. From that boot camp, I found myself another mentor. And I started learning about BRR and raising money. So, and that's exactly how in 2019, in May, I think around about April, I went back home. I just come from a 3 days boot camp. And I told my wife, we don't have the money to buy assets, but I think we are sitting on a house that we bought many years ago that is worth more. And I think we can use that as our gateway into asset acquisition.
So this is your main residence?
Yes, my main residence. I live there with my 2 children.
Right.
This is 2019. I've lived there for 13 years.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, what are you insinuating? Are you insinuating we sell and then take the equity and buy another house? Or are you thinking of what I'm thinking? I said, no, you're not actually thinking about it. Are you thinking we're going to remortgage the house to buy another property? So, but then again, affordability was still a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
So we couldn't get the appropriate, my credit score was rubbish.
Because of what's happened.
Because of what happened in the past when I went through all those challenges.
Just let everyone know you need at least 7+ years of good credit if you've had a problem. The personal credit's a big issue.
So, and my wife's only income couldn't carry at that time. So anyway, I told my wife about this, and then I said to my wife, no, what we're going to do, we are going to go and rent a house for us to live in. We're going to move out of this house, we're going to rent. And we're going to turn this property into an investment property. We're going to convert it from a 3-bed semi-detached property into a 6-bed HMO.
Right, okay.
And my wife is like, are you sure? Are you sure something is not going wrong in here? You mean we're going to leave our own house and rent somewhere and turn this into an investment? I said, yeah, that's the only way out because we can't sell.
Yeah.
We have to keep.
Yeah.
So, cut long story short, I started to learn about raising money.
Yeah.
So I managed to raise over £150,000 on a nutshell.
Yeah.
And that money went into refurbishing our own home.
How did you raise the money?
So I raised it through networking.
Networking.
So
Okay.
like I said, networking is something I'm very big on now. So I had met a builder, I had met people, I had networked. I was always sharing my journey. on social media. Go back to 2016. I was always sharing my journey on social media and everything else. So people are watching. you know. And when I connected with people, I never used to ask for people's telephone number. I would ask you for your social media. So if I connect with you, Z, for the first time, remember when we connected, the first thing I asked you was, are you on LinkedIn? You remember?
I think I asked you actually.
So we connected. We connected on LinkedIn.
I think we were actually connected before.
First. Oh,
we were
sorry.
connected before.
Okay,
that's how we knew each other, because I think we commented on each other's stuff.
Exactly. So for me, so at that time, every time I went out, I would ask for people's social
Just for
media.
the audience, we'll put the comments. We're going to obviously tag Daniel in. If you don't, Dr. Daniel, if you don't know him, you probably do. But we'll comment on LinkedIn comments on there, and you can also follow him as well for all our audience as well.
Yeah. So actually, so when I met people, I'd connect with them, and I asked for social media. I would not ask for telephone number, because the chances are, this is England. People respect people's time. You have to message someone to get permission first before calling them. But social media, people are
more open,
addicted to social media. The word, you know, whether you like it or not, people pretend or they don't pretend. Let the truth be told. If you're an entrepreneur, you want something, you're either addicted to LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, one of them, or WhatsApp.
That's the next stage. Do you know what? You've really showed your approach and your business challenges, how you've done this, because there's so much value here, right? And always time's always the essence for us. And I'm just thinking about you've done the networking connections, now you've raised the finance, now you've changed your first property HMO, and you're feeling the pressure with the missus, right? The heat's on right now, you can't mess this up or there'll be a lot of problems, but it's obviously did well, cash flowing, and then now you're thinking, hold on, I need to pump it up now. I've got all this revenue. I've got my business running. I've got my property here. Yes, we're paying rent, but obviously I'm getting much more from the investment to cover the rent. How did you then scale that property portfolio? Because you're talking, you're getting investment, and you're doing the BRRRR strategy. For anyone who doesn't know, probably do, buying, refurbish, rent, refinance, and that's when you're doing a buy hold.
You missed the last one.
Do you know so many R's on there, right? Repeat if you're confident. So you did that, and you started scaling the property entrepreneur and your property investment portfolio. How quick? Because we're talking 2019 now, we're getting to 2020. And if anyone,
just before the pandemic.
Right? This is when the world changed, right? And everything. But the wise people use this as opportunities. How did you make COVID work for you to scale the property portfolio?
The good thing was, like I said, I had already moved my family out and turned my family home into an investment property. So I had already kind of started understanding debt, knowing, okay, it is either a good debt or there's a bad debt, right? So I've tested it and I know it works. So when COVID happened, I already finished my first project or just about finishing my first project. And I, at that time, I had leverage to the tune of about 200,000. And COVID happened. So my debt was around £200,000
at that time,
just around the 30th of March.
What was your debt to equity ratio?
Well, I wouldn't say debt to equity because
I
didn't.
Debt to loan to value. You know, your debt percentage.
Well, I wouldn't even say equity value because I only had one property. You know, and yes, there was equity there after it was refinanced because the property was valued around about so the actual debt on the property was £220,000. And once the property was completed, it was valued at 700,000.
Wow. Okay.
So obviously, I did borrow a lot of money.
But it's not inflation because if you think about it, it's about, my math's doing right, should be all right with that, about a third.
About a third.
That's way, because most people, and that's why I'm asking, because a lot of people don't think about risk.
No.
They don't factor risk. They think the renter will always pay. As we know, that doesn't happen always the case, right? And you, especially, you diverse your risk because of the room and HMOs. But most people go full whack up to the 70-75%. So that's why I was trying to get context. So you've got way lower thirds. So you've got margin now. You're not feeling the pain, right? You don't want to end up in a messy divorce. Miss Moses is watching. You know what I mean? She's probably feeling this as we speak, right? So you've got that. So that was your first one. You took 200 grand. How did you use the 200,000?
So now, first of all, as of the 30th of March, obviously lockdown had just happened.
This is 2020 now.
2020 now. First project successful. And I'm there thinking, okay, I owe £300,000. So £200,000 I owe. Few things in my head. I'm like, okay, what do I do next? How do I pay this money back? And I remember saying to myself, okay, let's see what's happening in the market. The market was opened, real estate industry was open, and as well as there was, I think at that time there wasn't a lot of introductions of stamp duty holidays and yet.
Yeah.
So my rent portfolio obviously had a little bit of a hit. I had about 10 rooms, became empty. I had to manage that crisis because I had landlords to pay. Before government actually said, rent mortgage holidays and all of that, I had obviously reached out to a few of my landlords and requested for rent holidays and stuff like that. Some of them allowed me. I had gone to Barclays. They had given me some overdraft. And I think Metro Bank as well at that time also gave me an overdraft. Can't remember. Both of them did give me an overdraft as well. So I had a little bit of money to play with. So around about June, July, I bought another property. And that property, I bought it for 450,000. The project started almost immediately because what happened was I had applied for planning. They weren't getting back, but eventually did get back. And I got the opportunity to increase that value as well. It's cost me about 200,000 this time to do the refurb. And that property was valued at £950,000.
Where is this?
In Bromley, London as well.
And you did what strategy on this?
All these are all BRRs now,
But what
to
type?
HMOs.
HMOs. Perfect.
So then I bought another one as well.
How many rooms? I'm just asking.
6, so 3 to 6 beds, all en suite.
Okay. So you got that under, you have to obviously do planning.
Yeah.
And you've got that because it's getting close to the Suez Degeneres, isn't it?
Yeah, 6.
Yeah.
Then I bought another one for 465. Then the previous house that I lived in, we moved in. When we moved out, had the opportunity to buy that as well. So because that property was on the market to rent and to sell. So I negotiated that. The property was on the market for around about 700,000. All right. I did a delayed completion on that one.
Right. Okay.
And that property got revalued for about 1.3 million. So
did you do a purchase lease option on that one? Or
it was delayed. So
provision,
the sale was agreed. The purchase was delayed.
Right. Got
And
it.
that was for about a year. So by the end of 2020, I had scaled my property portfolio to over 2 million.
Wow. So mention those dates again. So within 2 years.
Within 2 years, so between
Through
2019 and COVID, I increased my property portfolio to around about over 2 million.
And it was cash flowing nicely.
All cash flowing nicely. And then by 2021, I kept, obviously, like I said, as of March, I was already in debt of 300,000. So I was able to hold on to this money, increase
Wow.
some of this money that come through. And again, we had bounce back loan.
Yeah.
Got £50,000.
Yeah.
I got £50,000 from bounce back loan. Just Cash Flow had given me about another £50,000 as well.
Yeah.
If you remember Just Cash Flow, they've gone into administration now.
Got it.
Yeah, so Just Cash Flow gave me about gave me about £50,000. Then if you know about Capital One on Tap,
Yeah.
Capital One on Tap also gave me, at that time I think I also had a limit of almost £75,000.
The interest is quite high, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
but
you used
when
it
you
as
have cash flow,
Got it.
okay,
You're using that as an equity, like a
exactly.
line of credit. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was using that.
Do you know on that point? I know we're digressing here, but this is really important. The US system is more advanced than the UK when
Very.
it comes to this. We don't have much line of credit or equity. Capital, and I've looked around a lot of these. Capital One is one of those, or Capital One Tap, I should say, is one of those that allows you to have that facility in place, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you've got to manage it, as you know.
I think my orientation, and like I said, when you come from a very hard weather and a harsh weather, it's all about, if I take money from you today for 20%, if I take cheap money from you for 20% today, it doesn't matter. For me, it doesn't matter. If I can give it to her and make 10% extra. So I take money from you 20%. and if I can give it to her, okay, and make 5% extra, 10% extra, what does that mean? It might not be a percentage.
It's a margin.
I'm buying an asset.
Yes.
Okay, so if I'm going to buy a house and I've done my numbers correctly, for example, I bought a house for 450.
Just for the audience, he's pointing to one of my team members around there and giving an example. No,
yes, I should have
absolutely.
mentioned. Sorry, what's your name? Anya, good.
Love it. So you're looking at margin, right?
So
You
yeah, I'm
believe
looking
the
at margin.
But
So
you're
I'm
having
believing-
the confidence to do that
Exactly.
because a lot of people don't have the confidence and the connections to pull it off.
Yeah.
And that's where you've done. So you've done this, you've bought now a portfolio.
Yeah.
And now COVID is properly kicked in and all
Yeah.
the rest of it. But you use this as an opportunity to grow even more.
Yeah, because I think for me, success is only in growth.
Yes.
You can only have success in growth. You cannot run a company alone.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
It's like saying it's like you saying I have a company,
Yeah.
and actually the company is you,
Yeah.
just one person.
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, this is how I see debt. I see debt, regardless of how much it's going to charge me to leverage that debt. How much is that debt going to make me?
Yeah.
You know, but if you flip the coin round the other way, a lot of people generically
Yeah.
wouldn't. It's like people were saying, "I'm not going to do deals" during the hike interest rate we just been through. People said, "Oh no, is you still making
not
money?"
really high, is it?
People's like, "Are you still making money?" You know, I'm not going to buy a property because the interest rates are so high. I'll give you an example. One of my mortgages expired during the interest hike last year. Now the property ended up producing £7,000 per month. Before the interest, before
Is that cash flow?
Cash flow a month.
Yeah.
The
Wow.
property ended up producing 7,000. The average room in that property is 1,175 pound is my cheapest
Got it.
room in that
Got
property.
it.
The most expensive room is about 1,250 pounds. No, 1,275 pounds.
Got it.
And obviously, these are properties that increased because of demand and because of my clientele in that particular location. So when that mortgage expired, I was paying £2,000, £2,250 thereabout. But when the mortgage expired and I needed to renew the mortgage, my mortgage went to £4,000. But then again, before that time, my tenant was paying around just under six grand or around under 6 grand. But somehow I had given everybody notices that okay, if you're not gonna stay, then go. It's business. I'm not in the property business. The hash should have to be told.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not in property business to be emotional. I'm a businessman.
Yes.
All right? It has to make business sense. Yeah. So I increased my rent. Do you want to stay or do you want to go? Oh, no, everyone's there. No, they're fine. And that took my income to 7 grand.
Yeah.
Guess what? When I remortgaged, my mortgage went to 4 grand. My cost, obviously, gas and electric was another big problem.
Yeah.
That also went up. So, cut long story short, the cost of running that property went to around about just under 5 grand or around about 5 grand. But regardless,
You're still making
I
cash flow.
remortgaged the property. Guess what had happened? The property was initially valued for 950, got revalued for about just under around about 1.1 million.
And what percentage did you take debt loan to value?
I releveraged it at 75%.
You went full
Again.
75. And it's still cash flow.
And it's still cash flow. And guess what then happened?
Yeah.
I got cash equity out of over £80,000 3 years after.
Right. Okay.
That buys me another house.
Wow. Yeah.
The house I buy gives me cash flow. So
It's a compound.
when you look at the American system, I learned a lot. I've learned a lot from I have a bird's eye view of the global economy in terms of debt,
Yes.
rather than the UK where people are very risk reversed.
I think it really depends because you've got to have that mindset of marginal safety and having cash flow because you've mentioned that in your thing. So I think one of the key lessons, what I've seen from Dr. Daniel Moses, right?
You have to understand leverage.
You have to understand leverage and margin and safety.
risk.
Yeah, so you always calculate. So you always have something in your back pocket. The hardest bit is at the beginning, right? When you got nothing and something goes wrong, and if you haven't thought about a buffer, and if you built a buffer or you got good network, either way, you're in a good place.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the bit, and then you pace. It's like starting a trading business. The hardest bit is the first 2 years. That's why 80% fail, right? Because cash flow kills them. Yeah, because they don't know they've got still personal cost and all the rest. Same with property businesses. Most of them struggle because you only tend to, depending on your property strategy and how much knowledge and what you've
I
done.
was having a conversation with a property investor who's been in the
Yeah.
market for quite a while the other day, and he said, I've never increased my rent
Wow,
for 5 years, and he's
Wow.
an HMO.
wow, wow.
So I wouldn't call that person someone who is business inclined. He
He's
has
got
emotion.
comfortable. He's got comfortable.
He's got
and
emotion working rather than business sense.
yeah.
And HMOs are usually what, cash cows, they call it?
They are if you manage them
If you
properly.
manage them
And
properly.
you've a lot of compliance now knows. I wanted to move because obviously there's so much and I know we're running out of time. I wanted to you've mentioned also your strategies in multiple books that you've done. You mentioned the test, and I just quickly want to touch. What's the other book that you did?
My first book is Rent to Rent Made Easy, which was just centered around rent to rents. And the second one is the test, transitioning from the ordinary to the extraordinary, which
Yeah.
talks about the mindset,
Yeah.
which talk about growth, transitioning. And I talk about wealth formulas there. And I also talk about the power of branding, the power of networking. I talk about a whole lot of stuff in there.
I think someone, if you haven't watched or read it, I'm sure Dr. Daniel will put a link in the comments when we post and all the rest of
Absolutely.
it. And anyone wants to reach out to him because you want to get knowledge from someone who's further down, who's done it, which he definitely has. Last bit I wanted to quickly mention is you're a member of the Forbes Business Council UK chapter. How did you become a member?
Well, the Forbes community, it's you have several in Forbes on the Forbes communities. You have several chains of different types of communities.
Yeah.
So becoming a member of the Forbes Business Council is actually a recommendation or nominations.
Wow.
So I became a member of the Forbes Business Council, which came from recommendation. I was recommended to the council.
Has
and
it helped you?
It has helped
Has
me.
it give you a different network? You
It
met
has
different people?
It has given me this is part of my global expansion strategy. Yes, it has done a lot.
Amazing, amazing. We're always running out of time. We've got so many things to quickly out, right? I wanted to, you've mentioned about your resilience. I think you've given your approach to next level and it's amazing. I wanted to talk about the different impacts to the business, right? I think we probably spoke about technology and you were talking about, and the buzzword right now, AI everywhere, artificial intelligence. You use that bit in your business. You're saying how you automate the processes.
Yeah.
Can you give us a quick little
In terms
example?
of technology, if you're not using technology now to leverage, you're basically losing out. So one of the things that we've been able to do especially with people visiting my page on social media, is almost like it's a spider web, right? So if you click on if you go on my web, if you go around my stuff and you click on anything, all right, automatically means we're going to show it to you again.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to show it to you and again. And by the time you plug in, all right, and you fill in your email address and your telephone number, you're automatically going to get information from me, right? That's one part. And the other part is that I wrote 2 books. It took me a year to write my first one. It took me 2 years to write the first book and took me a year to write the second book. And recently I've written 2 extra books, and those books took me literally less than a month to write. And why is that? Because I understood the power of AIs.
Yeah.
So first thing first is I spoke my entire book. The 2 books I've written now, I spoke it, and my AI to basically what's the word now? Translated and rewrote it. And all I just need to do is send it to my ghostwriter.
Got
So
it.
it took me a month to put a book together.
Wow.
Something that took me 2 years and a year before. So
Wow.
that's the power of AI.
I think you've smashed it with that answer, to be honest. That's given huge value to people thinking about giving more wisdom and trying to get it out,
Yeah.
because I've struggled with time to write books and to do it because it requires a lot of time investment.
And something else at the moment, I don't even write emails anymore. I just speak my emails. I
love
speak it and
And
it
it does
writes it, proofread it, and then there you go.
Do you know what?
Technology.
Love it. This technology is huge. The other bit I think we talked about, and this is always the big controversial subject, Brexit. How has that impacted you in your business? Or I think you were given a good answer.
Honest to God, Brexit, personally, my business, I did not actually think personally I had been impacted with Brexit. But I do have my own opinion. I think I love this country because this country has done a lot for me as well. And I think sometimes we love to eat our cake, and we also love to have it. You know, everybody was saying Brexit, wanted to leave. All right, now we've left. What has the actual change been in the economy, rather than the fact that there is short workforce in the country?
Yes.
You know, and yes, the other time the borders were open to the Commonwealth nation. Obviously, at the moment, we're also dealing with, oh, stop the boat, stop the boat, stop the boat. But the truth be told, we can stop the boat. We can stop it. We can't stop it. But the truth is that every country do need immigration,
Of course.
right? And there's good side of immigration. There's bad side of immigration. I'm a product of immigration, so the country's giving me a chance. All right. And today,
Yeah.
well, my son will identify as British rather than being a Nigerian, you know, or rather a British, Nigerian-born British, or however they would
Yeah.
like to address that. But I think in terms of Brexit, you know, there are other things behind in terms of, for example, foods have become more expensive and everybody's crying out. You
Yeah.
take £10 to the shop, you can't. And that's another effect of Brexit.
I think you've put a really good point. Inflation on
Yeah.
pricing, the cost of doing business has increased. I think these are things that you can see. This
Yeah.
isn't you being subjective, this is objective. It's what's happened.
Like I said, it's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the other one I just had is tax. We're at the highest level of tax. One of the reasons is we just, according to the OBR, which is the Office of Budget Responsibility, they reckon we lost 100 billion of our GDP. Hence the 40% tax, because if we lose 100 billion, that's 40 billion we've lost. That's going to be made up. That's why corporation tax is increased. All of these,
Yeah.
so they are linked.
I think
Whether
for me,
people
I do,
don't.
I
Think
do,
that's
I do
it.
think the UK needs to be thinking about competing in the global economy. Look at Dubai
Yeah.
today.
Totally
Everybody's migrating to Dubai. Look at the US
agree. Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
You know,
We're overtaxed here. In the current time, it's the highest since Second World War. It's not Zee Razaq
Yeah.
just saying this. This is facts.
Absolutely.
And I've done a lot of stuff on this, and I tell people this is the facts. It's no, you can hide politics wherever your side is. That's your choice. But financially, it's killing us.
100%.
And we need to think differently. I think the other bit is, I wanted to quickly check, is the property world and your impact on the property world, right? I think you're a big, obviously a huge fan of property. It's driven
I
your
am.
wealth.
Oh, I love it.
It's done the big drive of your wealth.
I love it.
If someone is starting or in the process or struggling, what would you recommend to them to make a difference?
I think first of all, I'll give credit to the coaching, the mentorship, the training institution around property. But a lot of people coming into property should understand you're coming into a business. You're starting it's not a side hustle.
Yes.
So you don't come into property and call property a side hustle.
Yes.
I think a lot of people are coming to property thinking it's a side hustle. And when they get in, if they don't succeed, they start to name it in the wrong way.
Yeah.
That the guys who are meant to do what they're doing is not doing it right. And as well as for those coaches out there, let's be honest, raising money is not easy, but if you build yourself well correctly, like I tell my students every day, when you think about coming into property, stop. Don't think about property first. Elevate your network.
That's it.
Don't think about property. First of all, elevate your network, because it is in your network that you're going to become creative in order for you to acquire assets and create your wealth. But a lot of people are coming into property thinking, okay, I'm coming into property, you know, all of a sudden I'm going to come to Zee. Zee's going to give me money. No, Zee's not going to give you money because Zee's don't know you well enough.
That's it. So I think your good advice, you've hit on the nails, is knowledge. But I think knowledge and network, and they go together, don't they? Because normally when you invest in knowledge, you build a network because you're meeting other people who are trying to, and that's you can see your story. You said it.
Knowledge, network, they go hand in hand. It's like husband and wife.
You've hit the nail on the head. Last bit, obviously at the time of recording this, right, we are in recession, but I think you made a really good point. How long do you feel the recession's been going on for?
Honestly, looking back, I completely think from COVID, we've been in recession.
It's been vast,
It's been looming around from when you had Rocket Man and Donald Trump's madness. Remember? Don't choke.
Good old Donald J. Trump. Yeah, we have to mention him in this one.
He's coming back now.
He's coming back as we're speaking.
And I love him.
You're a fan. You're
I'm
a fan. I've got a mixed view. I think something's good, something's not good. But he definitely provokes the mindset and the thought process, doesn't he? Because the way he is, he's a business. He's an entrepreneur.
The reason why I actually love Trump, I love the fact that people call him a bully, right? People call him a bully. He's unreserved. But I just look at someone who likes to say things how they are.
Yeah.
And the truth is that we are currently now in a world where people don't
Just
like
lie.
to say things how they are. People like to see white and call it black. People like to see black and call it white.
I love how you put that, because that's what I'm seeing. I think, and I think we had the conversation, I think we're living in the world where, people being themselves in a respectful way, obviously. There is a line, not being nasty to people, but sometimes you have to say, look, as you rightly said, if you can see something, it is what it is, right? Not pretend that you're seeing something different that no one's seeing.
Because people are trying to get him to pretend.
Yes.
You can't pretend. You don't pretend. Be who you are. People are either going to love you or people are going to hate you.
I think one of the last things I wanted to talk about, because we've had always with someone so knowledgeable, the podcast has so much value. I guess one of the things that I wanted to just finish, sourcing is quite big, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've obviously understood that process to a really good level, because you can only get these deals. Because the biggest question I have from so many entrepreneurs that ask me, even had it recently on one of the other podcasts that we've done, is how do I get the deals, right? Because
Deals are everywhere.
they're everywhere when you've got network and connections and you know how to assess and have the knowledge. But when they're not,
I think this is it, right? When you've been in business like me, 20 plus years in business, and you understand the act of negotiation, there's deals everywhere.
yeah,
When you can negotiate everything, the thing about negotiating, people do it very arrogantly and people do it very friendly. So for me, when you've been in business for this long, as I have, one of my very good friends has been in property business for over 40 years, and I had this conversation. He said, it's not hard because you learn to build relationship with people. You learn to have conversation with people. Do you understand? So I'll give an example. A property I bought, recently, it was on the market for £950,000, and we managed to get it offered for 875. Property's been on the market for a while. I've been looking at it, I've been following it, and I was told, okay, it's on the market for 950. The highest offer I got was 865, and I said, let me know if anybody else was to go above that, and then I'll match that. And that comes from relationship, it comes from experience, and it comes from being able to from humbleness, speak to someone and say, listen, you're my friend, all right? If it does happen, I'm happy to add 10K extra to get it for 875. And you can't match experience with unexperience.
yes,
So, and I think that is one of the reasons why I will always say it's not like learn business. Yeah. If you learn how to do business, finding the deals, all right, sourcing those deals are not very difficult, because the deals is all about understanding business.
yeah,
When people say sourcing, sourcing, I say, what? I mean, I teach it now because it's the name nicked for it. Well, it's just you understand. It's basically you being a consultant.
yes,
All right, being a deal maker.
yeah,
It's just been given deal. When you mention deal source in the US, in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Dubai, nobody knows what you're talking about. It's the UK terminology. For me, it doesn't exist, but obviously we've given it a name here in the UK and we call it deal sourcing. I see it as a different angles of being a property consultant. And being a property consultant means someone that has a bird's eye view of an industry and that can kind of move A to B to Z to getting what they want for their clients or getting what they want for themselves.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Is being able to see the value, being able to articulate value, getting someone to sell, and the buyer and making that margin.
Absolutely.
It sounds easy. I think for people knowledgeable, but a lot of people struggle with that, and that's where they need to invest in learning and build their network.
Yeah. And never, ever, ever talk down experience.
Of course. Listen, this has been it has been a Next Level Finance podcast, and we really appreciate it. Listen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Zee, for having me here.
And listen, I think you've humbled us and you've given us so much inspiration, and I know the social media family are going to really enjoy this, so thank you so much. That is the Next Level Finance podcast for this episode. Really appreciate it. Hope everyone's enjoyed the series season 2 episode 2, and we obviously please do like and comment below, and hope you shared it and you enjoyed the knowledge. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. Hi everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast. We're doing this to add value to your entrepreneur journey. We just have a quick catch up on this, is that just to remind you, we've got free business guides in the comments below. They got huge value in them for property investors, property developers, SaaS pensions, and if you've got growing trading business as well. If you, after you consume those guides that have got exclusive Sky TV episodes in them, please do get in contact with us. The contact details are there, and we can help shape your entrepreneur journey and unlock financial freedom. Thank you so much.